Your presence will be before us and everyone who serves in the decision-making process of our city. We pray for direction which will lead our city to be strong and unified. May we continue the legacy of our founders. May we be granted this day the wisdom to make decisions which will be for the good of our city. We also pray for your special blessing on all those who are working to transform our city and make it a better place to live and work. Amen. Please join me now in honoring America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Councilor Mendonça.
Here.
Councilor Mercia.
Here.
Mayor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Murphy.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Dakota.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Councilor Martin.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. Again, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The first order of business would be to accept the minutes of the June 8th regular meeting and the June 8th budget hearing. Motion,
The motion for the regular city council meeting?
just a regular city council meeting?
Yes.
Just a motion to accept the minutes for the regular city council meeting by Councilor Rita Mercia, second by Councilor Elliott. Any discussion on the minutes? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed is a vote. Now we have the minutes of the June 8th budget hearing for acceptance. We have motion by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Elliott. Any discussion on those minutes? Hearing none, all those in
Be
favor?
recorded as no.
Okay, so anybody else want to be recorded as no or present or? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
The vote is 8-1. Thank you. Under City Manager Communications, we have anybody want to be heard on any communications responses to council motions?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to thank the manager for eliminating those dangerous trees on Cornell Street, Columbia Street. I appreciate that. So don't the residents, and also the Black Brook, that was addressed and taken care of. The poles on Westchester Street, those poles are standing free. There's nothing on those poles. And the reason the new poles were installed was the city's going to widen the street because we put in a sidewalk. And those poles, they're not doing anything for anybody. So the utility company could very easily go in and take those poles down. With the poles there, we can't widen the street. So that's the reason for the motion. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Anyone else on the communications? Councilor Mendonça.
Yeah, I appreciate the response to my motion regarding working on the suburban waterfront zone. The response did capture the issue at the time, and hopefully they'll work to address it as soon as we have a neighborhood planner on board.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We received on our desk the Moody's report, or a synopsis. Mr. Manager, if you could maybe just hit the highlights for us.
Well, thank you, Council. We just got this rating or the credit analysis at the end of last week, so I apologize. We weren't able to finally get it yesterday. We weren't able to get it into the packet. But as you can see, it's we've given you the actual credit report, and I know it's very small font and tough to read through very quickly. But the important points I think I would note are that they have provided us with an A1 bond rating. We had been an A3 bond rating, so effectively that's an upgrade. Now, in the interest of full disclosure, I will tell you that we didn't jump from A3 up to A1 all on our own. The Moody's has done a recalibration of their bond rating, so of their municipals, so we were helped greatly by that. But as you know, back in 2006, we had been at A2 and dropped down to A3. And so moving up to A1 actually is, I believe, the highest rating the city may have ever been, but it is in part largely to the recalibration. However, beyond that, Moody's always also gives, in addition to their rating category, they also give some type of prognosis of a community's finances. And again, in 2006, when they downgraded us, and later that summer, when we showed the negative free cash, if some of you may recall, they took away our stable outlook and they gave us a negative outlook. We have worked hard to get that reversed, and in fact, they're now giving us once again a stable outlook. So, given all of the financial pressures that the city is under, like many communities, I think it's a very positive sign that Moody's, arguably the #1 bond rating agency out there, has identified the city of Lowell as being in fairly good financial shape. It has a stable outlook for itself, which is an improvement over where we had been before. And then I always, of course, like to read all the narrative that goes with it, and they have been very complimentary to the actions that the city has taken, in particular noting the management team that's in place, and the ability that the city has had to implement cost-saving strategies, prudent expenditure reductions to produce balanced operations. They also, I would note, consider our debt burden to be very manageable for a city of our size, and they do, based upon an analysis of our economic development activities, they do cite our significant potential for economic expansion. So all in all, I know that from time to time we hear people come before the city council or hear people in other places talking about the city's finances, but this is an independent agency that is brought on to review our finances, as we do with Standard & Poor's as well, that gave us a good bill of health, if you will, for our overall finances and our financial management. So I think it is notable, and I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Broderick. Anyone else on the communication? Motion to accept the communication placed on file by Council Broderick, second by Council Elliott. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Opposed to the vote. If we could go back to unfinished business public hearing, I apologize. I skipped right over that. We do have the loan order that is before us this evening, and that's to borrow $1,360,000 for repair, replace Rogers School roof from last week. If you recall, we held this in the clerk's office. So I'm going to actually ask the city manager to give us an overview, and then we'll open it up to the floor. Mr. Manager.
Mr. Mayor, this is a loan order that had been before you before. We were asked to go back and do some additional work to explore the possibility of a green roof at this location. We did go back and we looked at that as a possibility, and we determined that while it didn't really hold potential to be a full green roof, it did have potential in the future to do something with the stormwater runoff. And we also determined that it had potential for solar installation. In fact, there was a meeting that was held just today with Amoresco in which they did an analysis and determined that, in fact, this area is very favorable for solar installation, so they're going to be following up on that. We also, based upon requests made by councilors, went back and once again tried to see if there was a way that we could look at this a little bit differently to bring in a lower amount for the loan order. The roof out there was done about 18 years ago, thereabouts. The section that is in question blew off during a winter snowstorm. That obviously needs to be repaired. The remainder of the roof is still in fairly good condition. So we've made the decision to we could do the entire roof at a cost of about $1.3 million, $1.4 million, but we've bringing forward to you tonight an actual reduction of that loan order that we brought forward. We do think that we still have a good probably 10 years left out of that existing roof that's in good shape. So the loan order that we have before you is a $760,000. That will allow us to move forward to repair the damaged area of the roof that needs to be replaced, and that in turn will allow us then to move forward as well with the solar installation. That was what was keeping the Rogers School from being a site for solar installation in the earlier Amoresco project. So this actually will end up saving us some money on our energy bills as a result of that solar installation.
Thank you. Before I recognize my colleagues, let me just read the loan order to get it on the floor. In City Council loan order, Rogers School roof to borrow $760,000 to repair the damaged areas of the roof on the Rogers School that have been temporarily repaired. Council Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, are we going to be doing like half the roof for?
It's a little bit more than half the roof. It's the flat area.
Yes,
of the roof,
right.
yes.
And it's going to be a rubber roof?
No, it's going to be an asphalt roof.
Asphalt, okay.
Right.
This is what the homeowner would do. This is what I would do, and I applaud you for doing this. If the homeowner couldn't afford to have the entire roof shingled and only half of it was leaking, they'd fix that half. And this is what we have to do. Would it be better to do the entire roof for $1.3 million? Yes. But do we have the money to do that? No. And I think this is the most prudent and sensible way to address it. And I applaud you for it.
Thank you. Council Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, through you to the manager. Is there any opportunity, it's 18 years, was there a 20-year warranty? Is there any opportunity for any type of warranty monies to be available?
Right, Councilor Dakota asked me that question earlier today, holding my feet to the fire. In discussions with Mr. McCarthy, we've explored that, and that's not a possibility. The warranty has expired on that due to the time or to a failure to do necessary maintenance during that period.
Thank you.
Council Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was the main reason that I asked for a delay of the vote not last week, but the week before, to come back with, a separation of those two levels, seeing that one was listed in fair condition and that still has value. So I think in the future, including in something like this, an analysis of how how the cost compares to doing the entire roof because of economy of scale by doing it all at once versus how much value is left in that roof. And as you say, there's at least 10 years, maybe 12, if it's a 30-year roof. The second point I just want to address is the information that was included about the green roof, because there were some numbers that were thrown into the report. One suggested that it might cost 85% more than what this listed price was. But there are a number of different pricing for green roofs, a number of different kinds of roofs. So when you get into just throwing out one price, I think that needs to be also more fully explained. That when councilors here who admittedly have no roofing experience or any knowledge about roofs, when they're asked to make a decision about what direction we ought to go in, I think you really need to have some more background there. That there needs to be a life cycle cost analysis. There needs to be what are we looking at in terms of reduced energy costs, perhaps 10 to 15% by doing a green roof. We have to look at in the future there will be quite a few requirements with stormwater management, and it's not going to be just some kind of luxury that we're looking at. It will be eventually become a necessity. So I think we need to look at that. It was mentioned, I think, in the report that it's only a slightly longer lifespan, but in fact, some of these roofs can last up to 50 years, which is significantly more than 30 years. And if we're, looking at these type of things, that over the long term, we'd be saving quite a bit of money. The main problem here I see with the green roof is that, and we talked about this earlier, that whether or not it could be structurally supported. But I just want to bring these points up for the future, so that there's not this idea that it costs 85% more and it's undoable on other projects. There are essentially what was listed was roughly $21 a square foot. There are companies that are doing green roofs from between $15 and $25 a square foot that would satisfy, I think, the needs of that roof. So we do have to look at not just the prices, but what's behind them. My mother was a math teacher at the Rogers School for longer than this roof, certainly, and Councilor Mendonça knows that. He was a student. And one of the things she impressed upon her students was that you show all your work, so that you're not just arriving at a result, but that you understand how you got there. And if it is, in fact, a wrong result, that we can then go back and look at where it went wrong. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Rita Mercier.
Did you want to respond, Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Councilor. I did just want to briefly respond that Councilor Murphy, mentioned that one of his reasons in delaying this or asking that this be delayed a couple weeks ago was, this whole notion of looking at just doing a part of the roof, and that is correct. I mean, and it does save us. It will save us money. It saves us about $45,000 a year by not doing that extra roof. Now, we will have to replace it in another 10 years in all likelihood, and so that savings goes away. But we felt at this point in time that seemed to be the better course of action. And I do think we need to do more with the green roof concept and trying to get some better numbers on that. It is still a relatively new technology here, and particularly in the municipal climate and the bidding type of environment that we're in is certainly vastly different than the private bidding. But we are going to be doing more work on that. We are doing some demonstration projects down at the wastewater, and hopefully we'll have better numbers moving forward on what this will cost. But I certainly appreciate the comments the council made regarding this project.
Councilor Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So originally, the unfinished business vote would have been $1,360,000, but you've checked it out, and what's before us is $760,000, and so we're not adding another $600,000 to this borrowing bond, but we're addressing what's damaged, and we're leaving the rest of the roof that's not damaged, which has another life consistency of about 10 years.
That's correct.
So when do we fit in with this green roof concept? Are we gonna, that's not included in this money here?
No, it's not included in this one. As Councilor Murphy pointed out, there were some issues there regarding costs that we were going back and forth on, but the bigger issue that we had there is the structural issue with the type of roof that's underneath there. So, and also this is a prime candidate now with a new roof. This is what, as I said, what kept Amoresco from looking at that for solar. If you installed solar there on the old roof, and then you had to rip it off to replace the roof in a 10-year period, then the payback disappears somewhat. So this now, with this brand new roof at this on the flat portions, will allow us to put the solar in and benefit from that as well.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you,
Then
Mr. Mayor.
I do need to open it up for a public hearing. But go ahead, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to touch on this subject. Back in the middle 60s, they built the Houston Astrodome, and they had the most loveliest grass you can imagine, but it all died in 10 days because grass needs sun. And the architect and everyone involved, we didn't realize that. If the architect is building a building, they provide for extra strength on a roof, the stresses and so forth, if there's going to be a green roof on it. There's nothing that says the Rogers School could support the weight of a green roof. And that's, I mean, I would go along with, we're going to build a new building, a school, whatever it might be, go with everything that you can do to save money and save energy. But this school, the roof trusses were built and installed. The architect's plan was for a rubber roof. And that's it in a nutshell.
Mr. Manager?
But Councilor, I think that's exactly the point that Councilor Murphy and I were just commenting on, is that you certainly can retrofit. We're doing it to wastewater. We're retrofitting buildings that weren't designed for green roofs with green roofs because they can support it. But in this case, as we were just discussing, it won't support it. So that's why we're not moving forward with that.
Thank you. At this time, the chair would like to open up the public hearing for all those wishing to speak in favor of the loan order. In favor? Name and address, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, Mr. Manager, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Mark Goldman, 58 Oakland Street, Lowell, Mass. Wish to be recorded in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldman. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? In favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition? Hearing none, that portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Elliott, seconded by Council Broderick. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercia,
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next item on the agenda, out-of-state travel. I believe we have 3 out-of-state travel requests. Is that correct, Mr. Clerk? Motion by Councilor...
Yes, take them all
Take them all
together.
together by Councilor Mercy, second by Councilor Martin, that we take them all together. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Approval by Councilor Mercy, second by Councilor Caulfield. Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. The next item is a communication from the city manager. Dear Mayor Milonazo, members of the city council, this is to advise you that I'll be on vacation from June 25th, 2010 through July 9, 2010. I'm requesting that the city council designate Thomas Moses, CFO, as the acting city manager during the above stated period. Thank you for your anticipated courtesy in this regard. Very truly yours, Bernard F. Lynch, city manager. Motion to accept the communication by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Elliott. All those, actually, we need a roll call.
Yeah.
I apologize. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça.
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next item, vote in city council authorizing the city manager to apply, accept, and expend funds for the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfields Area-Wide Planning Pilot Program grant in the amount of $175,000. Whereas the city of Lowell is desirous of applying for a grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfield Area-Wide Planning Pilot Program to support continued planning and redevelopment efforts in the Tanner Street area, and whereas the grant will make available to the city the total sum of $175,000 to support brownfields planning and redevelopment efforts along Tanner Street. Now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell that the city manager be and is hereby authorized to apply, accept, and expend funds for the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfield Area-Wide Planning Pilot Grant Program in the amount of $175,000. Be it further voted that the city manager, on behalf of the City of Lowell, be and hereby is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary in connection with said grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfields Area-Wide Planning Pilot Program, including the expenditure thereof. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to apply, accept, expend funds from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfield Area-Wide Planning pilot program grant in the amount of $175,000. What's the wish of the council? Move approval by Council Martin,
Second.
seconded by Council Broderick. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Mendonça,
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield. Counselor Dakota.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Present.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 present.
Thank you. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to apply, accept, and expend funds from the United States Environmental Protection Agency Brownfields Cleanup Grant Program in the amount of $400,000, whereas the City of Lowell is desirous of applying for a grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfield Cleanup Grant, and whereas the grant will make available to the city the total sum of $400,000 for the cleanup of 2 parcels, properties at 193.1 Jackson Street and 239.1 Jackson Street, also known as parcels 8 and 9, within the Hamilton Canal District, $200,000 for each property. Now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell that the city manager be and is hereby authorized to apply, accept, expend funds from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfields Cleanup Grant in the amount of $400,000. Be it further voted that the city manager, on behalf of the City of Lowell, be and hereby is authorized to execute any and all documents necessary in connection with said grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfield Cleanup Grant Program, including the expenditure thereof. Second reading by title in City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to apply, accept, and expend funds from the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Brownfield Cleanup Grant Program in the amount of $400,000. Switch to the council. Move approval by Council Broderick, second by Council Caulfield. Any discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Mendonça.
Yes.
Counselor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Murphy.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Dakota.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Present.
Counselor Martin.
Yes.
8 yeas, 1 present. We can delay these next 2 until Tom Belgrad gets here. He's running a little late, he just got.
Just to let my colleagues know, I've been asked to just delay these next 2, that Commissioner Bellegarde is on his way and is due here, so if I could just entertain a motion from Councilor Mendonça, second by Councilor Elliott, that we just delay the next 2 items, number 8 and 9, until Commissioner Bellegarde gets here. And I do know that we have guests in the audience, so please bear with us. I know Emily Rosenbaum is here from the CBA, and Michael Halligan is here as well. Thank you. Moving on with the agenda, item number 10, vote in City Council order to fund the shortfall due to a change in the state pension reform legislation ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, at the amount of $325,341.26 be transferred from Manager's Contingency Fund 01237056561700 to retirement account number 01357056560800. Order recommended introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Second reading by title. Vote in City Council to fund the shortfall due to a change in the state pension reform legislation ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows, at the amount of $325,341.26 be transferred. Motion by Council Martin, second by Council Broderick. Any discussion? Council Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What was the change? As they didn't give us as many years?
Correct. They, well, we didn't see the savings that we had anticipated. We had, when we did the budget last year, we had projected out a certain degree of savings that would basically that we would be allowed to level fund our appropriation. I believe it's the way it was working out. They changed it to requiring us to be funded till 2030, and the retirement board opted not to take that at that time, and because there wasn't going to be the savings that we had anticipated, so we were able to. We decided not to do that, so now we have to fund that here. If you recall, in the 2011 budget, which was just approved, they've the legislature, we have more information now. We had more information when we did the budget, because we have the House, the Senate, and the governor all on the same page this time, going out to 2040, so that communities can smooth out their assessments. And that we also have money built into the budget, if you recall, in the really off chance that that doesn't happen, that we would be able to make that up within the existing budget that was approved. Last year, that was not the case, but we did have money within the contingency fund that we were able to move over.
Right, so we're still planning that we won't be fully funded now until 2040?
They're actually looking at it more in terms of establishing a 30-year revolving cycle now, as opposed to a definite date. But that's what the effect is the same, moving out to 2040, right? And the budget was based upon that occurring.
Okay. I mean, if I could just comment, I think, because we have this unfunded liability, people sometimes get the sense that, these are overly generous pensions and things. But right now, I think the current employees pay at a rate, higher than what people contribute to Social Security. So the unfunded portion is from years ago, when I think the contribution levels were maybe 5%.
That's correct. That's a very good point. That any unfunded liability now is really dealing with what occurred 20 or 30 years ago, when you're right, it was 5%. We're now, employees now that come on are paying 9% plus really everyone, a 2% surcharge on top of that, and which is considerably more than what people pay into Social Security. And just for, if you use one of those online retirement planners and run through the scenarios of starting at a certain age, putting that 9% plus 2% surcharge of your salary in, assuming a certain amount of growth, and if you run it all the way through as if you were doing exactly what this pension system is set up, you actually have I believe it's a 97% chance of achieving your, your pension at the end of it all. So the actuaries that have put this system in place are look to be on target. Actually, the legislature or the state is now looking at making some modifications to the pension system that will reduce the amount that employees pay into the system, but extend out the years of service that you have to have before you collect your pension. So it will mirror more Social Security. You won't be able to go out at, necessarily 65. You'll have to wait till you're 67 to get the maximum pension.
But at some point, it's intended to be self-funded. I mean, for someone who starts work today,
correct,
they're self-funding their pension.
That's correct.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott?
I was just going to ask, when did we identify this shortfall? I mean, it's a good thing there's money in the contingency fund, but at what point did we realize that we had to come up with $325,000 some change?
Several months ago.
Right.
And we had blocked off this amount to transfer in by the end of the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Vote in City Council order to meet fixed charges and current expenses of the City of Lowell for the fiscal year 2009-2010, ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the amount of $409,640.72 be transferred from various salary and wage accounts, various operating appropriations, as well as all remaining funds in the FY 2010 contingency account, all of which are more fully described in Attachment A, to various accounts in deficit, all of which are more fully described in Attachment A. Order recommended and introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Second reading by title. Vote in City Council order to meet fixed charges and current expenses of the City of Lowell for the fiscal year 2009-2010. It's the wish of the council. Motion to approve by Councilor Martin, seconded by Councilor Murphy. Any questions? Councilor Mendonça.
Yeah, I'm concerned about the first transfer form. and the salaries for the police department. The explanation is that traditionally we budget about $200,000 that we take off for turnover and attrition, so there's some savings to the city. But this is showing that during the past fiscal year that did not occur. And so that brings into question for me the year ahead. If the economy stays the way it is, maybe there's not as much movement in personnel where we again budgeted $200,000. Are we going to be at risk of not having that offset?
I think that there's always a risk in all of our budgets, and that's why we track them on a regular basis, and may become necessary to make modifications as we go along. I think that last year was a particularly unique situation, given the attrition that had occurred in the prior year that we did not refill. We're in a position now, again, we're not necessarily refilling everything. We are maintaining a certain level of staffing, though, that in the police department in order to comply with the grant. And we do anticipate that the accumulation of positions of people who did not go out last year will probably pick up this year. And it's not necessarily that we won't be filling those positions, but it's the timing of when we fill those positions that really generates the savings for us. So it's certainly something we have to watch, but it has been a historical adjustment that's made in the budget, police, fire, and last year we did it with school nurses. We have met them in the other categories. We didn't meet it in the police department.
One other change, we did reduce the estimate for savings from turnover from 200,000 to 150 in the fiscal 11 budget.
All right, so that'll take care of some of it. Well, hopefully, as we get into FY11, we get quarterly reports that we monitor this item to make sure it's going to be within the range that we expect.
That's correct.
Thank you. Council Elliott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city manager or Mr. Moses. I'm a little concerned about the school unemployment figure. I know we've had this discussion. I know we met in finance subcommittee. We originally, or quite some time ago, there was a transfer of about $750,000 to unemployment. Can you just give us a recap on why we needed that $750,000? And I do recall you saying at the finance subcommittee that some of this may be transferred to claims. It seems like a pretty high figure, but for whatever the number of claims, is that one major claim, or is it a number of claims for police and fire? So just a recap of why we're transferring the $173,000 from unemployment. What was there some savings there? Was it overestimated or?
It's a little bit of both. We did, as you recall, transfer money in. We had exhausted the appropriation very quickly last year. The school department, given the budget uncertainty last June, laid off a number of people, gave notices to a number of people that they that began collecting unemployment. That they brought a number of those people back because the situation improved for the school budget, but there was still, it drew down very quickly the amount that we had set aside. The school department themselves had set aside some money beyond that. We came forward to the council back in November and asked for, if you recall, we had some savings in our snow and ice deficit. We also had some new growth that we were unclear exactly what the extent of the school unemployment problem was going to be based upon the trends that we were looking at up until that point in time. So we added that additional money into the unemployment line. And if you recall, at the time, we also gave you the council a report that indicated that we had a number of claims that were coming in that we did not necessarily set aside money for, because very frankly we didn't have the money available to set aside. And claims are something that you can pass into the next fiscal year. So as time went on, we quickly came to the conclusion that we would have enough money in the unemployment line, and that there would in fact be a surplus. We advised the council of that, but also advised the council that that would then allow us to deal with other issues such as claims that would come up, would need to be funded during the fiscal year, or should be funded during the fiscal year. So that's basically how we got to that. These claims that you see here for workers' comp, for the city, and then the police and fire claims, these are a number of claims these are our workers, essentially our workers' comp claims, injured on duty claims, that the law department has been working on. And obviously it's better to fund them now than it is to carry them into the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Manager, if these transfers weren't needed, all this would be free cash, wouldn't it?
That's correct. If the transfers weren't needed, this would all generate into free cash. That's
And
correct.
do we have any free cash?
Not at the current time.
None. But these transfers weren't necessary. That'd be $409,000 free cash.
That's correct.
Any other questions?
But at the same time, Counselor, if we didn't have these monies available, then we'd be
in trouble.
we'd be going negative
Right.
490 into free cash. So we do have the money. We're funding these, and if you recall, each and every year we do this at the end of the year. We sort of balance everything out and transfer the money to make all of the line items come out.
This, on the police department, we're taking from the police department $108,000 in gas and motor oil.
That's correct.
Will they have any gas and motor oil to run the rest of the fiscal year?
It's only a week and a half left, so yes, they will.
Okay.
We're asking them to coast downhill. So.
Pedal.
Any other questions, comments? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercia,
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy,
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next item, in City Council vote, approving the exemption of Jeffrey A. Moore from the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20, whereas Jeffrey A. Moore is employed by the City of Lowell Police Department as a police officer, and whereas Jeffrey A. Moore desires to accept a position with the school department as athletic coach football, and whereas in order to be employed in a second position with the City of Lowell, an exemption from the provisions of Section 20 of Chapter 268A is required, and whereas in order to qualify for such exemption, an employee must satisfy all of the conditions under said Chapter 268A, Section 20B, and whereas the position of athletic coach football with the school department is with a completely independent department, and whereas Jeffrey A. Moore filed a statement disclosing the second job with the city clerk, and whereas the second job will be performed outside the normal working hours of the first position, and whereas the services to be performed in the school department as the athletic coach for football are not part of Jeffrey A. Moore's duties in his primary job as a police officer for the police department for the City of Lowell, and whereas Jeffrey A. Moore will not be compensated in the second position for more than 500 hours per year, and whereas the Assistant Superintendent of Finance and Operations of the school department has certified that no employee of that department is available to perform the duties of the second job of athletic coach for football for the school department, now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the City Council of the City of Lowell hereby approves the exemption of Jeffrey A. Moore from the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, approving the exemption of Jeffrey A. Moore from the provisions of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 20.
Move approval.
Move approval by Council Caulfield, second by Council Broderick. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield.
Yes.
Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin,
Yes.
9 yeas.
Next item, loan order. In City Council loan order to borrow $7,343,000 for the purpose of planning, study, design, implementation, construction, and installation of upgrades and modifications to the wastewater treatment facility, collection system facilities, and existing flood protection system as incorporated within Phase 1B of the Wastewater Utilities Capital Improvement Plan, CIP. It is ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell by a two-thirds vote as follows: that the sum of $7,343,000 is appropriated for the purpose of financing costs of implementing Phase 1B of the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utilities CIP, including planning, study, design, implementation, construction, installation, costs of upgrades and modifications to the wastewater treatment facility, collection system facilities, and existing flood protection systems, including without limitation all costs thereof defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the general laws, that to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, is hereby authorized to borrow $7,343,000 and issue bonds or notes, therefore, under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, and/or Mass General Law, Chapter 29C, that such bonds or notes shall be general obligations of the city unless the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, determines that they should be issued as limited obligations and may be secured by local system revenues as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C, that the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amounts from the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust established pursuant to Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith to enter into a loan agreement and/or security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection with respect to such loan, and for any federal or state aid available for the project or for the financing thereof, that the city manager is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection to expend all funds available for the project and to take any other action necessary to carry out the project, and that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify any and all of the bonds under Mass General Law, Chapter 44A, and to provide such information, execute such documents as such board may require for these purposes. Order recommended, introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Refer to a public hearing July 13th by Council Broderick. Second. Second by Council Martin. Council Caulfield.
Mr. Mayor, just very briefly, I asked for and I received all the loan orders for the waste treatment plant dating back to the Cox administration. I'm just going to read these loan orders. And I'm not negative towards this, but I just want to bring this forward. January 8th, 2008, a $5 million loan order, upgrades to the waste treatment plant. June 10, 2008, $35 million loan order, $21 million for the waste treatment plant. July 10, 2007, $5,500,000 sewer system line cleaning. October 5, 2004, that's under the Cox administration, $50 million for the CSOs. July 8, 2003, another loan order. Well, that was the initial loan order, $10,100,000 for the CSOs. I'm just wondering, Mr. Mayor, I would like to have you appoint a subcommittee regarding the CSOs. It was once in existence with Council Howell and myself, and just to keep track of what we're doing, where we're going. All these loan orders is for the waste treatment plant, upgrades. So I don't want to belabor the issue now, but if the council wants a copy of these loan orders, I'll get it from them. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Caulfield. Council Mendonça.
Yes, I'm concerned about the growing debt at the wastewater treatment plant. And so I'm hard pressed to support something like this, but we'll have the public hearing later. So I'd like a better understanding going into it of exactly where we are, because I was trying to look and compare last year's budget projections with this year's budget projections, and for the wastewater utility, we were projecting $2.3 million deficit. In this budget, we were looking at finishing the year with only a $1.4 million deficit, quite a big difference. The projection in this year for the FY11 was that it would be at 11 million. The projection in the previous budget for FY11 was 17. The debt service has gone from the FY10 projection of 7 million to over 8 million in debt service a year in the current budget. So there's a lot of differences, and I'd like to get a handle on what's the real number. I was looking at projections for the revenue coming in, and that's usually a function of the water that we serve on a particular premises. So there were increases in the water, but it was flat as far as the revenues, the local revenues for the wastewater. So clearly the projection is just an estimate for a quick estimate, but I'd like to get a better estimate with the numbers we know today on where we would be, and an understanding of where that extra debt service is coming from. And I understand that in the loan order, backup information, you're describing that we got some stimulus funds that helped with some of our existing projects, so that if we funded this, it would not make our projection any worse than it is. But that was a gloomy projection, and it just means we're keeping a gloomy projection going forth, especially with a 26% rate increase projected for an FY10 sometime, which we haven't taken up yet. And I think that's a very large rate increase. So once we get into or past the public hearing or leading up to it, I'd like to get a very good explanation of where we are, what this will cost in the term of the rates, and redo that projection so that it's, again, more closely aligned with the numbers that we know today, just to give us a clearer picture of what this will mean to what we have to do for rates.
Thank you. Councilor Elliott, then Councilor Mercia.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to get an understanding of this is the debt schedule for these loan orders. If I recall, sometimes they're not all level funded. The schedule's not level funded. I mean, sometimes the debt goes up if it's front loaded or not. Is that the case with the fluctuation in these projections from year to year, that some of the loan orders we pay off more principal, or there's more interest, or I think it's a good point. What can you give us some explanation, or maybe wait for the report when it comes in?
Well, in advance of the public hearing, I'll give you a brief explanation. The forecasts fluctuate, not necessarily because of the way the debt is structured, but how fast we're spending the money. A lot of this, one of the reasons that the forecasts for debt service are higher now than they were last year in the near term is because we accelerated a lot of this work to obtain this extra federal funding. If you recall, projects had to be shovel ready. So we accelerated that time frame. We had planned on spending the $35 million over several years, move that time frame up, which meant that we begin to pay the principal sooner. That's one aspect. Secondly, for some real detail on the debt, I think I will refer you to the budget. Each individual component of wastewater debt service is listed separately in the debt service portion of the budget. And this year we enhanced the information. Not only is the principal and interest for this year's debt service outlined for each component, but the outstanding balance in principal and the ultimate maturity date for every individual component is listed. So that will give you some sense of how things are moving forward. It will also give you a sense of what was anticipated to happen in fiscal 11 versus what was fixed and was going to happen in fiscal 11. Part of the anticipated debt service is we will raise money this month, which we did. We raised $5 million for the wastewater treatment plant. We will raise more money, borrow more money in September. This is money that's been authorized in the past, not something you're voting on. We have to build debt service for those amounts that we haven't borrowed into fiscal 11 budget, because we will incur expense during the fiscal year. Those are estimates. Those are not fixed. And in the budget, you will see the letters TBI, to be issued. That's what that refers to. So a lot of this detail about the upcoming year is in the budget.
Councilor Mercia?
Um,
And Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Bellegarde just arrived, so we're going to go back to the
If
agenda.
you could
after.
just explain through you to the city manager, the very last paragraph that I'm about to read that says, taking a larger view, the new loan order allows us to make $93.6 million of improvements at a cost of $85 million and do not require deviation from the original rate forecast. In other words, these loan orders can be funded without a rate increase beyond what was originally anticipated. Well, does it mean we're not anticipating a rate increase, or what was originally anticipated? What was originally anticipated? What does that mean?
Back in 2008,
Yeah,
the wastewater department, Mark Young and Camp Dresser McKee and the administration presented forecasts for rate increases for several years into the future, about 5 years into the future.
yeah, I see that.
If you approve these loan orders in 3 weeks, that will not change that original forecast, because that assumed that we were going to spend and pay back $35 million loan order.
So by voting for this at the public hearing time, which we're setting a date for the public hearing, we're going to increase to 26%?
There are 2 ways to look at this. You can approve these loan orders and not deviate from the 2008 forecast, or you can not approve these loan orders and save from the 2008 forecast. Those are the 2 options.
However, I would note that the savings that you make is minimal, because this is work that it goes beyond. This is stuff that's been funded out of essentially this is money that's being, projects that are funding through the stimulus bill, and are taking on actions that will save us money in the long run, but go beyond what was originally anticipated. That's the whole point of this. So I think, Councilor, that when you speak to the bottom here, that if we do these loan orders, we get to make, when you add up all of the improvements we're doing here at the wastewater plant, you're doing $93 million worth of work, but it's only costing the city $85 million.
Geez, just only 80,
Well,
85, that's pretty good.
But you've already approved the 85. You've already approved that. So the question is, do you want to get $93.6 million worth of work done for $85 million, or do you want to reject these and get $85 million worth of work done for $85 million?
Without a increase.
It's impossible to do this without a rate increase. Councilor Caulfield just read off all of the loan orders that the City Council has approved through the years, largely the CSO work, some $50 million, 60, so, right, the first 10 plus 40 plus the 10 that I believe was added on for 6th and Emery, that I believe Councilor Caulfield championed at
And
the
the
time.
council raised the rates back then, too.
But not enough.
That's debatable.
Well, if you look at the spreadsheets, it's not debatable. There's a lot of money there that went out the door for the CSO project, some $60 million, and a very small rate increase at the time. That's why we came in with a rate increase in 2008 and said you're going to have to raise rates again.
2008, it was 11%.
That's correct.
Now we're asking, if we support this, another increase of 26%?
We're not asking for a rate increase right now. Again, this loan order has nothing to do with the rate increase.
Does this loan order have anything to do with the consent decree that is issued to the city, or that's
I believe
separate altogether?
roughly 1.2 million of it, Mark, has to do with consent. The other portion has to do with improvements that are taking place at the plant with regards to the aeration system and the energy improvements that have taken place there that will save us money in the long run. The aeration has to be done. It was a question of whether you're doing it in a energy efficient way through the stimulus money, or whether we did it through the normal way, which would have been Phase 1C of our capital improvement plan that has not yet been authorized. So this allows us to, this is allowing us again to do more work for the same amount of money, as opposed to doing the amount of money that a lesser amount of work. But the rate increase, again, this has nothing to do with the rate increase. We're not asking, this is not coming in and saying, we need you to approve a 26% rate increase to do this work. This work will not impact the rates.
Are we getting any help through the federal government with the stimulus money?
That's what I just described. This money is the effect of that stimulus money. This is that stimulus money. But you can't just, you have to, it's being done through a loan forgiveness program with the state. It's not being handed out to us directly,
So
it's
we're
going to the state.
spending money to save some money in the long run.
Exactly.
And at the same time, the taxpayer is going to have to fit the burden down the road because we don't have enough money generated in the enterprise fund.
Exactly. Because we've done all this work for the CSO project and the upgrades to that plant that are 30 years old that should have been done
Mr.
along the
Manager,
way.
I don't think people would be so up in arms about this if we knew that this work that was going to be generated would alleviate the flooding in certain different neighborhoods. Is it going to be doing that?
Phase 1B, which is well, let me back off from that. This isn't going to do anything for flooding. But Phase 1B included levee improvements, as well as the improvements to the pumping station on the VFW that are included within the $35 million that you approved already. It's really not going to do anything about the flooding that in Centerville or Pawtuckettville, but it will enable us, once those projects complete, to go in and have the maps, the floodplain maps redone to take some houses back out, some properties back out of the floodplain. So it will benefit some people in that regard. The CSO work, that's $60 million worth of work that we've done, or that's been authorized, plus this 1.2, has had a very dramatic, in fact, we didn't show a picture of that here, did we? Did Mark? No, you just showed me that picture of one of the neighborhoods that used to experience very serious flooding.
Emory Street and parts of Pawtucket.
Right. That we experienced a substantial amount of flooding that now, because of the CSO project, doesn't occur. So when you speak of that type of flooding, you can't really speak, we're not speaking of Merrimack River flooding, but street flooding, with drainage systems that are overloaded, that were antiquated and inadequate. We have fixed those. And that's what that $60 million has gone towards. It's separated it, which we were required to do by the EPA, and we've targeted it into that effort into neighborhoods where there has been street flooding, so that, and we'll have those pictures for you, so you can see the effect of that work.
Are we separating it up on Moore Street by Sacred Heart? Are we doing something up there with
Up on Moore Street,
separation?
Mark?
Water?
It's a water project. We're not doing any, we were doing some work in that Gorham Street area last year, but Moore Street is not part of that. Right,
We're doing water in that area.
that's correct.
All right, thank you.
Council Martin?
My question's been answered.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of referring this to a public hearing July 13th, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Going back to the regular agenda, item number 8. We do have Commissioner Bellegarde here, and we also have Emily Rosenbaum, the Executive Director of the CBA. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift from the Coalition for Better Acre of $25,500 for use by the Parks and Recreation Department. Whereas Coalition for Better Acre Incorporated desires to donate $25,500 to the City of Lowell to be used by the Parks Department to provide additional playground equipment and signage at the Moody Street Playground. And whereas the City of Lowell desires to accept the gift of said sum to be used by the Parks Department to provide playground equipment and signage to the Moody Street Playground. Now therefore be it voted that the city manager be, and he is hereby authorized in the name of the city of Lowell to accept a gift from the Coalition for a Better Acre Incorporated of $25,500 for use by the Parks and Recreation Department to be used to provide playground equipment and signage to the Moody Street Playground, all pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Be it further voted that we, the members of the City Council of the City of Lowell, jointly and severally do hereby commend and officially thank the Coalition for a Better Acre for their generosity displayed in donating the aforesaid gift to the City of Lowell for use by the Parks and Recreation Department. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift from the Coalition for Better Acre of $25,500 for use by the Parks and Recreation Department. Move approval by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Broderick. The chair recognizes Commissioner Bellegarde.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, members of the City Council, first and foremost, thank you for your patience. We have some good news here tonight. We have 2 more park partners that are coming in with some money. We have 2 gifts for our parks and open spaces. The first gift is from our friends over at the Coalition for a Better Acre. They've been working closely with the City of Lowell's Parks and Recreation Department and the Planning and Development over the past 2 years in building a playground on Moody Street. We have Emily Rosenbaum here tonight, the Executive Director, and she has some money for us, and I'd like to ask Emily to come up and tell us all about it. Thank you.
So thank you very much for having me here today. I want to first put this in a little bit of context for you, is that over the past 8 years, the Coalition for a Better Acre has been able to leverage private and public resources on what we call our Moody Street and Upper Merrimack Street improvements to the tune of $42 million. So starting here at the North Canal Apartments, moving up Moody Street to the beyond the playground to the building that we occupy as our office space at 517 Moody Street, which is the former St. Joseph's Convent, the former elementary school at 517 Moody, over to Merrimack Street. Right now we're under construction at what we're calling the Acre High School, which is the old St. Joseph's High School. And that will be another 22 affordable rental apartments. And we've also recently done a second redevelopment or 450 Merrimack Street, our complex here across from the library, which includes apartments and commercial spaces and houses our home preservation center, which is foreclosure prevention center. So, you know, looking at all the improvements we had done in 2006, we started to work with residents of the neighborhood at how could we cap this off and make it more of a rich experience of housing and recreation for the kids. And here was this city park right here in the midst. And so we started to work with Adam Bakey and his staff in planning and development, brought in some residents, came up with some designs and some ideas for revitalizing the playground. The city was very generous in $100,000 worth of improvements that went in from Community Development Block Grant, and that redid the basketball court, did some nice landscaping, did some other improvements, park benches. We have a nice little plot for where the kids' play equipment is going to go. And about a year and a half ago, we did have a fundraiser. We raised about $10,000, and we've been able to through our own resources, pool another $15,000 to come up with the $25,000 needed for the piece of play equipment that will serve the middle school age group kids who normally do utilize the playground for basketball. We do have the tot lots over at North Canal, which are very vital to the neighborhood as well. So we think this will be really complete the set of improvements for the neighborhood. It's what the residents wanted. We're really proud to do it. And the last thing I just wanted to note is we do own and manage 380 affordable rental units, and I just want to make sure that the public knows these are all very productive units for the city of Lowell. They're all paying real estate taxes. I think there's sort of a misnomer about affordable housing that somehow the taxes don't get paid. They actually do. And so these are very productive, very high quality, very good housing for the workforce here and the families here in Lowell. And we're thrilled to be able to do community improvements along with the housing.
Thank you. Thank you, Emily, very much. On behalf of my colleagues, I do want to offer my sincere thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and I can't say enough about Emily, her dedication, her sincerity, and the manager and I were up last summer at this time, and we were part of watching this building being demolished. The building was decrepit, deteriorating, an eyesore, and through Emily's leadership, the building was demolished, and a beautiful home has been built in this place. And next door to that, we have a contractor refurbishing this huge tenement building. Emily, your leadership in the Coalition for a Better Acre is unbelievable. And I've watched you and your sincerity and your dedication to people. That's what it's all about, to people. And it's very evident what you did here tonight. And I applaud you for it, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also would like to offer my congratulations and sincere thank you for the great gesture of partnership that the Coalition for a Better Acre always shows to the public, and it's really remarkable. I really have a fondness for that area, having grown up there as a child, visiting the nuns at that convent, offering me in to eat, to feed me, because I thought that I wasn't eating at home, so I have a fondness there. I also look forward to going back there and seeing the playground, because I bought a brick there some time ago, and I wanted to take a look at that. So I know that you're improving that area one building at a time, one piece of property at a time, and the land at a time. So thank you for that nice gesture, and it's always nice to receive some good news for a change. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Mercier, I had heard from one of those sisters, they weren't trying to feed you, they were trying to recruit you.
They almost did.
But, Councilor Caulfield, Councilor Mercier, I think, expressed the sentiments of all of us about the efforts of the Coalition for a Better Acre. And Emily, because this hasn't always been the case. I mean, the Coalition for a Better Acre has a long track record of valuable service to the city, but there's been tension at times in the past, and I don't think we have that now. And I think that's evidenced here this evening, that it is possible for us to work with the private agency. The private agency can derive some support from the city, and so we really do appreciate all of your efforts at the Coalition, and we certainly appreciate the gesture tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Martin. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield? Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, and again, I want to thank Michael Halligan and his family for their patience. In City Council vote authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift from Mr. Michael Halligan of $800 for use by the Parks and Recreation Department. Whereas Michael Halligan, who is a Boy Scout working toward becoming an Eagle Scout, has raised $800 and desires to donate the $800 and his service to improve the conditions at the Olga Nieves Park located at 123 Adams Street. And whereas the City of Lowell desires to accept the gift of said sum and services of Michael Halligan to be used by the Parks Department to improve the conditions at the Olga Nieves Park located at 123 Adams Street in the City of Lowell, now therefore be it voted that the city manager be and he is hereby authorized in the name of the City of Lowell to accept a gift from Mr. Michael Halligan of $800 and his service to improve the conditions at the Olga Nieves Park located at 123 Adams Street for use by the Parks and Recreation Department, all pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53A. Be it further voted that we, the members of the City Council of the City of Lowell, jointly and severally do hereby commend and officially thank Mr. Michael Halligan for his generosity displayed in donating the aforesaid gift to the City of Lowell for use by the Parks and Recreation Department. Second reading by title in City Council vote, authorizing the city manager on behalf of the City of Lowell to accept a gift from Mr. Michael Halligan of $800 for use by the Parks and Recreation Department. Move to accept by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Dakota. Chair recognizes Commissioner Bellegarde.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have a special guest here tonight. We have a Life Scout working toward being an Eagle Scout. And Michael Halligan approached us about 6 months ago and wanted to have this Park Oganavise as his project. I'm not exactly sure in the hierarchy, but I believe the Eagle Scout is a very prominent position, probably the highest honor they can give. So it's a very honored position. Michael's not only going to do the work himself, we've already put a plan together, but he also raised the money. He raised $800 to put toward the program, which is the cost of doing what we talked about him doing. He's prepared to do it as soon as the vote is taken. We're probably going to meet sometime during the week at the site, and he wants to get started. He's anxious to get started because once he gets this behind him, I think then the honors are bestowed to him. So at this time, I'd like to ask Mike to come to the microphone to say a few words and explain the project to us. Michael?
Hello. My name is Michael Halligan. I'm a Boy Scout in Troop 3, and I've been in Boy Scouts for about 7 years now. And a few weeks ago, we started work on the park, and that involved pretty much cleaning up the park and removing weeds and removing dead plants and stuff like that. We came back the next weekend and worked on it some more, moved more trash, removed 9 tree stumps that were dead. Following weekend, we planted some more flowers. We put down bark mulch. We put down 5 yards of mulch. Now I have 2 things left. I have to remove the wood chips from the playground area because there's a lot of trash in there, sharp objects, and put down another 23 yards of it, and finish off the park with another 10 yards of bark mulch to just improve the landscape. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. Council Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, as the mayor, you get the opportunity to attend very few Eagle Scout, what are called courts of honor. I know this not so much from being the mayor, but from being a scout myself, and I was a Life Scout. Only 2%, I think, or less, of all the people in the Boy Scouts go on to achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. And so I think Commissioner Bellegarde was, pretty modest in describing the achievement that Michael Halligan is about to receive. So I think, as a Life Scout, to go the extra mile to Eagle, I think scouting is really looking for the next level. It's not so much just earning badges and doing things on your own, but it's things like the Eagle Service Project that demonstrate an ability to lead, to coordinate a wider effort, to raise money, to give back to the community, all of which are demonstrated in this project. To work, with Mr. Bellegarde and coordinate there is so many organizations do it, but they're usually organizations. They're not usually, one teenager who's working toward the rank of Eagle Scout. So I think this is an area of the city that clearly needs this. I think it's a very worthwhile project, and I think we all congratulate Michael Halligan on his achievement. Wish him well as I know will achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Council Martin. Councilor Rita Morissette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am so proud of this young man to be an Eagle Scout, to go for that. That's the highest honor that you could have as a Boy Scout, as a citizen, as a resident. And when that code of honor comes up, please send me an invitation. I would be honored to go. I have in the past. This is truly a remarkable evening that the manager and I are not arguing, but we're getting free money and hearing good deeds provided by the youth of our city. And when we talk about the future, you are the future, and we're looking very darn good because you're making your parents so proud. I can see them so proud of their son, Michael, and so are we as a city, because we're strapped for money. We have minimal people working, to do the job, and then along comes a young man like you and makes us so very proud and restores our faith in the future. So you've done it all, Michael. We're very, very proud and grateful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Council Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe an Eagle Scout has to obtain 26 different badges to obtain the Eagle Coat of Honor. And Michael, not only are you a credit to Boy Scouts of America, you're a credit to your parents who are with you this evening. And wherever you go, whatever resume you fill out, that will be on every resume. And I believe over half the presidents of the United States were Eagle Scouts. So we're looking forward to you in the White House.
Thank you, Council Caulfield. Anything else on this vote? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. The chair would like to recognize Councilor Rodney Elliott.
I'm not sure if it'd be a point of personal privilege, but it's a little bit out of extraordinary. But knowing that Mr. Bellegarde was going to be here tonight, I don't have any money, but I'd like to put my another hat on as president of Lowell Youth Soccer. And we recently held an appreciation night for the hundreds of volunteers that it takes to run Lowell Youth Soccer. There's over 800 families involved, and as you can imagine, doing it with limited funds and the cooperation of the city is very important. So I just want to present Mr. Bellegarde with a plaque. Lowell Youth Soccer is celebrating 30 years this year in the city, and I know Mr. Bellegarde probably doesn't want me to mention this, but he's been there since the beginning. And he can remember, and I haven't been there, I've only been there for 17, but he can remember when we first started at the Bartlett School, or really at Duville Manor, or on the river. And luckily, thanks to the city and prior city councils and the taxpayers, there's a beautiful complex that really, there are hundreds and hundreds of games. So not to belabor the issue, I just want to present this to Tom tonight for all years of service and support on behalf of Lowell Youth Soccer. So I want to thank my colleagues and thank the mayor for giving me this time to present this to Mr. Bellegarde publicly. So
Well deserved.
Thank you on behalf of all the men and women of the Parks and Recreation Department. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you very much. Thank you, Councilor Elliott. Moving on with the agenda. Next item. We have a loan order in City Council loan order to borrow $1,241,000 for the purpose of planning, study, design, and construction of new drains and sewers for sewer separation projects to address sewer system backups and street flooding in combined areas of the city, including the Warren Street CSO drainage basin, which is part of the City of Lowell's Phase 1 CSO long-term control plan. It is ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell by a 2/3 vote as follows: that the sum of $1,241,000 is appropriated for the purpose of financing costs of implementing the Lowell Regional Wastewater Utilities long-term control plan, including planning, study, design, and construction of new drains and sewers for sewer separation projects to address sewer system backups and street flooding in the combined areas of the city, including the Warren Street CSO drainage basin, which is part of the City of Lowell's Phase 1 CSO long-term control plan, including without limitation all costs thereof defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the general laws that should meet this appropriation. The treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, is authorized to borrow $1,241,000 and issue bonds and/or notes, therefore, under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 44, and/or Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 29C, that such bonds or notes shall be general obligations of the city unless the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, determines that they should be issued as limited obligations and may be secured by local system revenues as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C, that the treasurer, with the approval of the city manager, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Water Pollution Abatement Trust established pursuant to Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith to enter into a loan agreement and a security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection with respect to such loan and for any federal or state aid available for the project or for the financing thereof, that the city manager is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection to expend all funds available for the project and to take any other action necessary to carry out the project, and that the treasurer is authorized to file an application with the Municipal Finance Oversight Board to qualify any and all of the bonds under Mass General Law, Chapter 44A, and to provide such information and execute such documents as such board may require for these purposes. Order recommended and introduced by Bernard F. Lynch, City Manager. Motion to refer to public hearing on July 13th by Council Elliott, seconded by Council Broderick. Any discussion? All those in favor of referring it to public hearing signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next item, in City Council ordinance. An ordinance deleting and abolishing some positions and amending the compensation of certain employees, all consistent with and included in the City of Lowell budget for fiscal year 2011, passed by the City Council on June 8, 2010. Whereas certain positions hereto attached were eliminated in the said budget for fiscal year 2011 and are to be abolished from the code. And whereas this ordinance is presented to the City Council for passage in order to codify the abolition of certain positions and other code changes, all consistent with and included in the City of Lowell budget for fiscal year 2011, passed by the City Council on June 8, 2010. And whereas in some instances in this ordinance, the change by creating and deleting of particular position merely reflects a change of title, sometimes with and sometimes without a change in salary, and in some instances a salary increase or transfer of positions from one department to another. Now therefore be it ordered by the City Council of the City of Lowell by a 2/3 vote as follows. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor of waiving the full reading signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. The ordinance gets referred to a public hearing on July 13th as well by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Martin. Any questions? All those, Councilor Elliott.
Could you, through you to the manager, Mr. Manager, what's the cost of implementing this ordinance? Or if you can get that, I know we have a public hearing, if you can get it for the public hearing, that would also be helpful.
The actual cost of this is zero. I mean, the money was, the changes that have been taking place here, these positions that were eliminated were not budgeted at all, so there's no savings that necessarily comes from this. The savings are in the budget. Likewise, the adjustment of the salary grid was included in the budget as well. And I believe I gave those numbers that night for the adjustment. Okay,
so for the public hearing, Mr. Manager, can you give us a dollar figure on what the amount is, the impact of this ordinance? Because this is the increases, salary increases for all personnel and non-personnel. So there is a cost. I'm not sure why you said.
But it's already in the budget. I mean, there wasn't a change in the budget as a result of this.
I understand.
I was getting to that.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to give you that now or at the public hearing.
The public hearing is fine as long as we have it, that information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Refer to public hearing on July 13th. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next item, last item under City Manager, in City Council vote. Authorizing the City Manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell and ATP Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as Cobblestone's Restaurant, for use of a portion of city property more commonly known as Liberty Tree Park, adjacent to the premises at 91 Dutton Street, Lowell, for the purpose of an outdoor dining area. Whereas ATP Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as Cobblestone's Restaurant, desires to use a portion of city property adjacent to the premises at 91 Dutton Street, Lowell, portion of Liberty Tree Park, for the purpose of an outdoor dining area. And whereas the city desires to support the efforts of ATP Restaurant Incorporated, doing business as Cobblestone's Restaurant, in its endeavor to assist in the stimulation of the downtown area, now therefore be it voted by the City Council of the City of Lowell as follows: that the City Manager is hereby authorized to execute a license agreement between the City of Lowell and ATP Restaurant, doing business as Cobblestone's Restaurant, for use of a portion of city property more commonly known as Liberty Tree Park, adjacent to the premises at 91 Dutton Street, Lowell, for the purpose of an outdoor dining area. Said license shall be predicated upon adequate insurance coverage, which coverage shall be kept in force as long as the license agreement continues under this license. In the event that said insurance coverage shall be canceled or lapses without being renewed or replaced, then said license hereunder shall be forthwith terminated, and licensee shall have to cease and desist. Said license shall be in accordance with the form or substantially the form attached hereto. Second reading by title. In City Council vote, authorizing the city manager to execute license agreement between the City of Lowell and ATP Restaurant doing business as Cobblestones Restaurant for use of a portion of city property more commonly known as Liberty Tree Park adjacent to the premises at 91 Dutton Street for the purpose of an outdoor dining area. What's the wish of the council? Move approval by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça?
Yes.
Councilor Mercia?
Yes.
Mayor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Dakota?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Councilor Martin?
Yes.
9 days.
Thank you. Subcommittee reports. Chair recognizes Councilor Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Earlier this evening, we had a environmental and recycling subcommittee on receiving a annual report from Mr. Wellenstein, the recycling coordinator, who talked about the significant savings that we've realized over the last year in making some changes to the solid waste program. We then discussed some ways that are some opportunities for savings in the coming year, really focusing in on better enforcement, applying the 28D ticketing, and making sure that we're reducing the tipping fees overall for the course of the year. We also discussed possible ways of, if not directly funding, but certainly extending the opportunity for condo associations, multifamily housing above 6 families, as well as businesses, through some changes to our city ordinances. But all of this will take some time to work out. But there are, again, some opportunities there. We have moved from about 11% recycling rate up to 24% now. The manager noted that a target is really at 30% for this year, which we hope to make both through better accounting of what's included in our recycling rate, but also these significant gains through really education efforts, as well as better enforcement. So all in all, it was a productive meeting. There are some challenges that we have to tackle in the next year, but certainly with regular updates and potential grant monies from the state as well, we may be able to significantly improve both our savings and, of course, the improvements to our environment.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Any other comments regarding the subcommittee? A motion by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Dakota, to accept the report of the Environmental Recycling Subcommittee as a report of progress. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? To vote. Thank you. Any other subcommittee reports? Moving on, wire inspector. We have National Grid placed conduits in Adams Street, Fletcher, Suffolk, Dublin, and Broadway Street. Would need to accept the report and adopt the accompanying order by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Dakota. Does anyone need an explanation on what we're doing here? This is on the National Grid.
National Grid.
Okay. So again, accept reports and adopt accompanying order. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Opposed? To vote. We have, under petitions, conduit location, Attorney Michael Geary for Greener Excavating for underground conduit at 133 Clark Road. refer to a public hearing on July 13th by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Mercia. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed is a vote. Also, pole location, National Grid to place one pole on Lundberg Street. Also refer to public hearing July 13th by Councilor Mercia, seconded by Councilor Martin. All those in favor of referring to public hearing signify by saying aye. Opposed is a vote. We have one claim. Personal injury claim referred to the Law Department by Councilor Mendonça, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed is a vote. Thank you.
Need a motion.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to suspend the rules in
So
order to
moved.
introduce a petition from the City of Lowell for the storage of 30,000 gallons of gas diesel fuel at the JFK Civic Center and Water Treatment Facility on Pawtucket Boulevard, and in doing so, waive the requirement for a public hearing and approval, and approve, excuse me.
Yep.
Motion by Councilor Broderick, seconded by
moved.
Councilor Mercia. All those in favor, this is first on the suspension. All those in favor of suspending the rules signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. I'll look to the manager for a update as to what we're actually looking to do here. Mr. Manager?
Mr. Mayor, this is essentially a situation where we, as you know, we installed new gas tanks out at the wastewater, at the water plant, and behind the police station here, the new dispensing stations. It's necessary for us to have those properly permitted, licensed, even as a municipal entity, and this is simply processing that action.
Thank you.
Move for approval.
For approval by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Broderick. Any further discussion? Councilor Mendonça?
Is this related to having cards so we know who's using or dispensing?
It's part of that system, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Roll call.
Councilor Mendonça,
Yes.
Councilor Mercia.
Yes.
Mayor Milonazo.
Yes.
Councilor Murphy.
Yes.
Councilor Broderick.
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Dakota.
Yes.
Councilor Elliott.
Yes.
Councilor Martin.
Yes.
9 yeas.
Thank you. Moving back to the regular agenda, we're in the motions portion of the agenda. First motion by Councilor Caulfield. Motion, City Council requests the city auditor to provide a full financial report to the City Council on the wastewater enterprise fund. Included in the report should be: 1, has the city activated the loan order to make improvements to the wastewater treatment plant? 2, if not activated, why? 3, if activated, how is city paying for bond? Second by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion speaks for itself, and this could either be forwarded to the Finance or the Audit Oversight Subcommittee, but I would like to see that meeting before the July 13th public hearing on these loan orders.
Okay, again, would you like to put that in the form of a motion to have this
Yes.
referred to the Finance Subcommittee or the Audit?
It's really immaterial.
Okay, Councilor Mendonça, motion by Councilor Caulfield, second by Councilor Mendonça. All those in favor signify by saying aye. I'm sorry, Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a problem with that, but we're looking at 3 weeks till the public hearing, I believe, with, so I don't know if it makes sense to, I think it might have been you, Council, or Councilor Mendonça, that asked for this information prior to the public hearing or at the public hearing. I don't know if it makes more sense to just have the information presented at the public hearing, get it ahead of time, but make the presentation. You'd rather have a separate meeting.
I wanted to go to a subcommittee so we can air it out. Might take 45 minutes to an hour to do so, and to have it at the public hearing, it doesn't make sense to me.
We have a motion on the floor to refer it to the Finance Subcommittee. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Again, going back to the original motion, that we provide a full financial report on the wastewater enterprise fund. I know, again, it's been moved and seconded, so all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Thank you. Next motion by Councilor Caulfield, request the City Council Public Safety Subcommittee reconvene relating to the dangerous and vicious dog ordinance. Second by Councilor Rita Mercia. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Lowell Sun reporter called all the colleagues as well about an attack of a vicious dog on Lawrence Street and so forth. And this gentleman had his dog inside a fenced-in yard, and the dog leaped over and attacked his dog. I also heard of reports of an attack on Kingsman Street. There was also a report of attack on Chelmsford Street, where 2 dogs attacked an individual. And the purpose of the meeting is, one, is to bring the dog officer forward, and anyone who wants to come forward and address this serious issue. I believe the ordinance, Mr. Mayor, you told me that if a vicious dog attacks another dog, the dog would have to be then muzzled.
Yes.
If the dog attacks a human being, then the dog has to be euthanized. I just want to get reports from the dog officer. How many attacks? How many dogs have been euthanized? How many dogs have a muzzle? And people are getting a little yancy, and I don't blame them. And it's a serious issue. And part of the Public Safety Subcommittee meeting will also be there to address Chief LaValle's report. If you're going through this report, it's absolutely excellent. And I'd like the chief to bring forward the report. And also, there was some things in there that I want to address to the chief as far as the traffic escalating, traffic fines escalating over 24%. And those are the questions I have for the chief. But that's the gist of that motion.
The second part of that motion would require a suspension of the rules in order to get that to the Public Safety Subcommittee, since it's not before us, the report of the police department. So if you'd like to, well, let's take up the first motion first, referring the dog ordinance to the Public Safety Subcommittee. And I'm also going to, if it's okay with my colleagues, have members of the Animal Advisory Committee available that night as well, along with the dog officer.
If I may,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, when I filed the motion, I had not received this very important document.
And that's fine, we'll
It was
just
after the
do it on
fact, and
suspension.
I think we'll be more or less shying away from the chief. This is an excellent report, and I think
Right,
you
and
should.
I'm not saying when it's not going to get to the Public Safety Subcommittee, it's just not part of your motion.
Okay.
Council Broderick, then Council Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is the first motion, the one before us, are we talking about just getting a report, or are we looking to modify discuss modifying the vicious dog ordinance? Just to be clear before we go in, so people at home know, if we're just getting a report with how many attacks, how many muzzles, how many dogs were euthanized, and things like that, or are we looking to perhaps modify the ordinance?
That's not the gist of the motion. The gist of the motion is get a report for the people in this city.
Correct.
And they're getting
They
sick
don't have
and
the dog
tired.
officer there, or the police
Right,
department.
they're getting
yes.
sick and tired of vicious dogs attacking not only them, but their pets.
Right.
Simple.
Okay. Council Elliott.
Thank you. I support the motion. I think it's a good idea that we stay on top of this. I also agree, Mr. Mayor, that we should have members of the Animal Advisory Committee or Commission there. And it'll be good to get a report, but we have to do something with it. And it's the owners of these dogs that are the problem, you know, and then the dogs end up getting euthanized. So I think we have to look at options or ways to, I know the dog officer can issue tickets, can issue citations if they find out that they're not licensed, but, you know, getting the dog owners to pay for them or to be held accountable is, you know, the challenge that we face. And it's just an idea, but, you know, unless they know that there's a penalty and there's a way to attach these fines, and we can't attach them to their homes because some of them could be renters. But my idea is maybe look at placing a lien or a penalty against their license. Maybe some of these owners are too young. I don't even know if we can, but and it might require a home rule petition. But I think we need to start thinking outside of the box and say, how are we going to hold these dog owners accountable to license their dog and to keep them in compliance with the ordinance? So I support the motion. I support both motions to take a look at that, to take a look at this and see what the next step is. We put the ordinance in place. You know, and of course, it's always the irresponsible dog owners that are not abiding by the law. So I appreciate it, and I look forward to that meeting. Thank you, Mayor.
Any other discussion on the first half of the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Now, Council Caulfield, under suspension of the rules by Council Broderick, seconded by Council Caulfield, to refer the police report that we did receive in our packets to the Public Safety Subcommittee and invite the chief and his command staff to the Public Safety Subcommittee.
And, Mr. Mayor, that meeting will start at 5 p.m.
Okay?
And we'll need all that time to address these issues.
Okay.
And the members of the subcommittee, if you want to meet next Tuesday at 5, that's fine with me, and just let me know.
Okay. And we're going to take up both issues?
Yes.
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 Okay. Councilor Mercia?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did we form a committee for this vicious animal ordinance?
Yes.
And they are in place right now, right?
Correct, yes. And we have been meeting, yes.
And they'll be invited as
Yes,
well?
correct.
And they're supposed to come back with, I thought they were supposed to come back with some suggestions to review the ordinance and offer their input into it. Did we ever have any understanding as to what their decisions were, or their ideas?
We've had 3 meetings, and we'll be prepared at the subcommittee meeting to bring the council up to date as to where
Okay.
we are.
So that's going to be next Tuesday at 5 o'clock? All right, thank you.
Yes, if every member, are you on that subcommittee, Counselor?
Public say, I don't know,
Okay.
I'll be there anyway.
Okay.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Again, all those in favor of referring the report to the Public Safety Subcommittee yet to be called, signify by saying aye. All those opposed, it's a vote. Thank you. Next motion by Councilor Caulfield. City Council requests the city manager to report on the status of painting and repainting of crosswalks throughout the city. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've noticed quite a few pedestrians are looking for the crosswalk, and it doesn't exist. And if it doesn't exist, the motorists who are traveling on our roads don't know it exists either. So I think it's a very, very important issue, Mr. Manager, to start with the most dangerous intersections first and get those painted, because they do have handicap accessible sidewalks and so forth. I watched some residents on Middlesex Street, right by the St. Hilaire Car Wash. They didn't know if they were supposed to go up by Pratt Avenue or Baldwin Street, and I felt bad for them. So it's a serious situation.
Yes,
Councilor, we'll obviously we'll get you a report on that. The crews are out there now doing work. We are trying to identify additional funding too through Chapter 90 to enhance the crosswalks around the city. Most of our emphasis on crosswalks are geared towards a little bit later in the summer in order so that they'll be ready for the school's year. But we are out there right now. Crews are out to paint the crosswalks, and we'll get you a full report on that process.
If the city has a crosswalk or a handicap accessible sidewalk, we have to paint a crosswalk. It's a law. So.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. I would like to just let my colleagues know that on the Public Safety Subcommittee is Councilor Caulfield, Councilor Dakota, and Councilor Elliott. But it's my understanding that next Tuesday is not good for one of the members, so we'll have to get together and pick another date.
Okay.
So, just to let you know. Thank you. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. City Council requests the city manager to report on the results of the positive ticketing initiative. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the last meeting that we had, we did discuss a little bit about the revolving funds, and among them was a $25,000 revolving fund for the positive ticketing initiative. As Councilor Caulfield mentioned, we then, since making the motion, we've received in our packets for today a really extensive annual report by the police department, in which it was largely addressed, both what the intent of the program was and some of the at least projected results. I would just ask if there are any measurable or any observable results, that we get some kind of report on how effective that money is being spent. But I think it was a very good annual report. Very commend the department really for its transparency and its really forward-looking approach of, you know, looking at what other cities are doing, like this positive ticketing program, and trying to apply those lessons to what we're doing here in Lowell. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councilor Murphy. Any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. I'm sorry, City Manager Lynch.
Mr. Mayor, just a thought that perhaps when the police chief comes in for the Public Safety Subcommittee, he could we could have him make a report on that at that time as well, if that's...
Thank you. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. City Council requests the city manager report on the progress toward updating hazard mitigation plan. Second by Councilor Martin. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. This past February, I had made a motion to have the administration develop a grant proposal under the last round of the hazard mitigation grant program. And a number of projects were developed, but didn't quite meet the criteria of the grant. There is now another round of that grant that has a deadline, I think, of November 1st. But there are a number of sessions in the coming weeks, information sessions both for officials as well as residents to give their input on the program. And in the response that we received from the administration, it was also said that there would be an update of the city's hazard mitigation plan brought back to the council at some point. And so if in the continued work on that plan, I think we may be able to come up with some other ideas to actually meet the criteria of this particular round of the grant, and maybe get some proposals for that November 1st deadline.
Manager Lynch.
Council, TJ McCarthy has been spearheading this for us, and I know that he's been in touch with Senator Kerry's office, but we'll have him put together the discussions that have been going on, and we'll get that report out on this matter. I think the idea of looking at some alternatives, though, is a good one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motions, please signify by saying aye. Opposed, to vote. Next motion by Councilor Murphy. City Council requests the city manager to report on the focus of the Lowell STAT program during fiscal year 2011. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Murphy.
Thank you. As I really said in making the motion several months ago, with the beginning of a new STAT program, it becomes very important that you focus in on, you really narrow your focus to a few certain achievable results. And so this is really to get a sense of where the STAT program, what the STAT program will be looking at for the coming year, but more specifically, what those indicators are that we'll be using to track the data that we both collect and analyze. And I know that we did mention at that time, you know, Councilman Mendonça had a motion at that point about inspectional services, that would be a good place to begin focusing in on and achieving some really significant savings there, but also greater efficiencies. And so if we could have, and I think Councilor Dakota has a similar motion later on, if we could get a report on that. I know you alluded to earlier that there might be a presentation at this next meeting. Right. That would certainly be helpful for some long-term goals.
Thank you. Mr. Manager?
Along those lines, we are planning on having I do expect to, we had a meeting today on some issues regarding the 21D enforcement. And that's something, that's a tool that we use in both inspectional services and public works and a number of other departments as well. But so I do anticipate a report on that with some recommendations that Mr. Herbert has been working on with the solicitor's office. And at that time, we also anticipate having a summary of where we're at with the STAT program and where we're actually we're going with it in fiscal year 2011. As you point out, one of our top goals, and the reorganization certainly feeds into this, is in the area of inspectional services. That is where we see some opportunities for really measuring what we're doing in terms of performance and accountability. The other area that we're focusing on, I'll tell you now, is public works. Again, it's an area that we think that there's some opportunities there to dig into, to get some real measurable data on how we're doing as a department. So Mr. Herbert's been working closely with Mr. McCarthy on that. So those are the two functional areas, and then the various data points within that we'll spell out in the report. So we'll get that to the council. Again, I expect to have that on the 13th.
Thank you. Any other comments on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Rita Mercia. Motion, City Council requests the city manager have the special events coordinator plan a universal flag raising prior to the Lowell Folk Festival. Second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Mercia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I won't belabor the issue, but we did it last year through a motion, and I thought it was well received. People were thrilled about that. Lowell is ethnically diverse, and we're very rich in that history of different ethnic people in the city. People asked if that was going to happen again, and I figured if you don't make the motion, sometimes you forget about it, because I know that we had something that I brought forward many years ago, Student Government Day. I think it was first initiated by Steve Genren, and when he left the council, I thought it was such a worthwhile venture that I brought it forth again, and I kind of like let it lapse, and because I did, we don't have it anymore. So I think before April comes, I'm going to do it again. But this is another one of those housekeeping things where, like the revolving funds, I'm going to revolve this motion every June so that we have like a month to prepare for it. Because you were there, Mr. Manager and Mr. Mayor. We had a wonderful time along with my colleagues before the start of the Folk Festival. That's what it's all about. So I'd like to revive it again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
It was a wonderful event, and it gave every ethnic person the chance to raise their flag. I believe there were 30 flags.
Quite a lot in the courtyard.
It was so moving that Manager Lynch and Rita Mercia were dancing to the music.
Yeah, we danced.
I remember that vividly.
Any further
He
discussion?
couldn't keep up with me. Let's say that for the record. No, I'm
All
just
those in favor of the
kidding.
motion signify by saying aye. Opposed, it's a vote. Next motion by Councilor Mercia. City Council requests the city manager have the proper departments address the sidewalk conditions at 30 Penn Avenue and 9 Osgood Avenue. Second by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Mercia.
I could have separated that motion because it's actually two, but where it involves streets and whatever, and I know money's tight, so I don't know where we're going with it, but at least the constituent sent me a little email from 9 Osgood Avenue talking about the sidewalk, and it was patched up significantly different times, but where his daughter is disabled, she has a very hard time to go from the house to the vehicle. It's very difficult for her with the sidewalk the way it is. So if we could just have someone go over there. I'll give you this paper. The second one involves Penn Avenue, and actually, I'm going to confess something. I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. A gentleman wrote me a letter. I put the letter somewhere and I lost it. I don't know where it is. I don't know who the man is or what the actual address is, but it involved the sidewalk. So I went over to Penn Avenue and looked around. It seems that they're repairing the street, and they did that. But it seemed like, I think the concern was that little bump that goes into the driveway, but I know that they kind of patched it up. I think they're not done yet, so I think they're still in that Penn Avenue area. So if we can just address the, I know the sidewalks are tough, but you know, that hump that leads to the driveway to the street. I think they're correcting it. It just takes time. So that's the gist of that motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Next motion by Councilor Dakota. City Council requests the city manager to update the council on data analyst progress in relation to goals, expectations of the position. Seconded by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Dakota.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'll be satisfied with your report. I would like to ask for one additional component to it. Still on the streets, many residents are not fully aware of what the position does because it's not a traditional position. So perhaps Michael or you could explain what he's doing, maybe some of the obstacles, the process that he goes through, just to let us know, let the residents know so they're comfortable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments on the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. The last motion of the evening by Councilor Broderick. Request the City Council Finance Subcommittee meet regularly with the School Committee Finance Subcommittee to review future budgetary needs and explore opportunities for savings.
Second.
Motion by Councilor, second by Councilor Mendonça. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The motion speaks for itself. But by way of explanation, Councilor Elliott had a similar motion for this year for the budget, and I think it was helpful for the understanding. Councilor Mendonça, being a former school committee person, has a better, I think, understanding of the inner workings. He brought up an issue the night of our budget in terms of enrollment, and I think there's a lot that we can learn by having some regular meetings. I think that on the city side, I know we have a 5-year plan that was critiqued a little bit, but we have a 5-year plan, and I think we have maybe an understanding or a map as to where we're going to go and how we are going to get there. And I think that it's important is the biggest, I think the biggest source of funds of a department in the city. We have an understanding of where the school committee and the school department sees themselves going and how they intend to get there and what their resources are going, what the demands are going to be potentially, and how they're forecasting for that, but also what the expectations are and trends. I assume there are some trends and some statistical data that maybe we can analyze as well, and the manager and Mr. Moses in regular meetings may be able to help identify some cost savings. We had the motion before about consolidation. Some departments, as that goes forward, maybe we can find some savings there. But there may be some additional ways that through collaboration, we can find some other means of doing that. But also, so we have an understanding of what the expectation is going to be from our side as to what the funding sources are going to be. If the state is going to be cutting again next year, what are the expectations of the effects on Chapter 70, and what are they going to be looking for us to do, and what are the impacts going to be? Because if we're going to have to make significant adjustments to how we fund the schools, where is that going to come from? And I think these are things that we have to start looking at, and through regular meetings. And I'm not suggesting monthly. I think maybe even twice a year, quarterly or something, depending upon what the manager and Mr. Moses have for us, but or the schools have. But I think it's important to continue the discussion and see where we're headed in the future.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Broderick. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Opposed to vote. Chair recognizes Councilor Caulfield.
Mr. Mayor, just like a point of personal privilege.
Councilor Caulfield, yes.
Thank you. At the last budget hearing, I brought up the issue about the $700 million that the Senate and the House, the Congress, were going to vote on. And it was debated at length in Washington. And we all know that the state of Massachusetts did not receive that $700 million. There were 17 other states that didn't receive any money either. All I can say is, Mr. Manager, we dodged a bullet. And I know there was a huge debate on the Senate and the House whether to go, once again, go in and cut local aid or use money from the rainy day fund. But I was told, because of that vote, next year could be even worse as far as cuts in local aid. And that's why I brought that forward at the budget session. And the governor was going to cut 3.6% out of every line item, and it was going to, that would devastate the entire budget. But the legislators decided to take money out of the rainy day fund, and all I can say is, once more, I don't want to be redundant, but we dodged a bullet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Mendoza?
Just a point of personal privilege. This Saturday at 11 a.m., there's going to be a dedication in Centerville at McPherson Park for naming, I believe, the playground area for Conrad Gauthier. He was a Marine. He did a lot to improve his neighborhood, beautify it through plantings, and I believe it was his idea to originally put up flags along those business districts. So he did a lot for his neighborhood, and the neighborhood group, the Centerville Neighborhood Action Group, would like to see as many people there to honor Conrad as possible. So anyone that can make it should attend that dedication.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that up. Thank you. Anything else to come before the council? I'd like to wish the city manager a restful vacation on behalf of my colleagues. It's well-deserved. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Broderick. All those in favor signify by saying aye. It's a vote. Thank you.